The moment Myles Garrett stopped staying quiet. There are moments in the NFL that don't announce themselves with fanfare. They don't happen under stadium lights, they don't come with a referee's whistle, and they certainly don't show up on the highlight reel. They creep in quietly, a throwaway line in an interview, a subtle shift in how a locker room feels, or a battle-hardened veteran finally reaching his breaking point after one too many broken promises. And right now, something in Cleveland feels unmistakably different. For the first time in what feels like forever, Myles Garrett seems to be done biting his tongue, and that, whether people fully appreciate it yet or not, is a very big deal. Garrett isn't the type to go fishing for headlines. He's never been the guy tweeting cryptic messages at midnight or stirring the pot just to keep his name in the conversation. If anything, he's built his entire reputation on being the opposite of that, the quiet giant who lets his play do the talking. Coaching carousel? He kept showing up. Quarterback disasters? He kept dominating. Wasted season after wasted season, broken promise after broken promise. Through all of it, Garrett stayed loyal, stayed focused, and kept dragging Cleveland's defense forward almost entirely on his own back. So when a player like that starts making his feelings known, people don't just notice. The entire league leans in. This isn't background noise. This is the kind of signal that front offices lose sleep over. Because once your most respected player, the one everybody inside that building looks up to, starts publicly nudging things in a particular direction, it becomes almost impossible to put that back in the bottle. And that's precisely why the quarterback situation in Cleveland has gone from simmering to explosive almost overnight. For months now, the name Shedeur has been floating around NFL circles with growing intensity. At first, it felt like the usual off-season chatter. A young quarterback with a famous last name, some flashy workout clips, and fans getting carried away with possibilities before a single meaningful snap was ever taken. That's a tale as old as the league itself. But this feels different now. The buzz around Sanders hasn't faded the way off-season hype usually does. If anything, it keeps getting louder and more specific, particularly when people start talking about his composure, his leadership, and the way teammates apparently respond to him behind closed doors. And now, with Garrett seemingly throwing his weight behind that momentum, this thing has taken on a life of its own. This no longer sounds like fans debating potential on Reddit at midnight. It feels like one of the most important voices inside that building has already made up his mind about where the future is headed. That's an entirely different conversation. What makes the timing so loaded is where Cleveland already finds itself. The Browns went all in on Deshaun Watson. Historic contract, massive trade cost, enormous public expectations. And the whole thing has been a slow-motion train wreck of injuries, inconsistency, and controversy that left the franchise right back where it started. Confused, frustrated, and searching for answers. Fans are exhausted. Veterans are tired of hearing, "Just wait until next year." And Garrett has spent the better part of his prime watching this organization cycle through one supposed solution after another while his own championship window quietly keeps shrinking. That kind of experience doesn't just breed frustration. It reshapes a person. It changes what they're willing to say out loud. And there's growing speculation now that Garrett may have reached the conclusion that Cleveland simply cannot afford another season of stumbling around at the most important position in professional sports. If that's true, then what we're watching right now might not just be a veteran sharing an opinion. It could be the opening move in a genuine power shift inside the Browns organization. Here's the thing people outside of NFL locker rooms sometimes miss. Credibility isn't handed out equally. And it isn't earned just by being good at football. It's earned by showing up when things are ugly, by competing through pain when everyone else is mentally checked out, by continuing to give everything you have to a team that hasn't always given much back. Garrett has done all of that for years. And that's why when he speaks, the whole room listens. Not just the young guys looking for someone to follow. The veterans, the coaches, the people making the decisions upstairs. They all feel it. So when Garrett publicly leans toward a particular quarterback, that's not just an endorsement. That's a quiet earthquake. Younger players start gravitating toward whoever the locker room's most respected voice seems to trust. The energy in practice subtly shifts. Conversations change. And before any official announcement is ever made, the momentum inside a building starts pointing firmly in one direction. Once that happens, reversing it becomes incredibly difficult. Ask anyone who's watched these situations play out before, what makes the Shedeur Sanders angle so compelling isn't just the hype, it's the specific things people keep pointing to. Composure, steadiness, the ability to stay locked in when everything around him gets chaotic. For the Cleveland Browns specifically, those qualities carry extra weight because this franchise has spent years watching quarterbacks unravel the moment the pressure got real. Big personalities, massive expectations, and then the wheels would come off the moment adversity showed up. Sanders, by multiple accounts, doesn't seem to operate that way. Reports suggest the organization has been genuinely impressed with how he handles criticism, attention, and competition without losing his footing. When the speculation around the quarterback room got loud, and it got plenty loud, he apparently kept his head down and kept preparing. Coaches noticed that. Teammates noticed that. In an environment as emotionally charged as an NFL locker room, a quarterback who stays calm when everything goes sideways is worth more than people realize. And interestingly, some of Cleveland's recent roster moves have people connecting dots. Investments in offensive protection, conversations about long-term patience over quick fixes, quiet rumblings about a development plan being in place before it was ever publicly announced. None of that confirms anything on its own. But pile it all together, add Garrett's apparent stamp of approval on top, and suddenly the speculation stops feeling like speculation. Of course, none of this happens in a vacuum. As the Sanders momentum kept building, it started creating a very uncomfortable atmosphere for the other quarterbacks in that room, and most notably for Dillon Gabriel, who by most accounts had been hoping for a fairer chance to prove himself before the tide shifted so dramatically. That's one of the cruelest aspects of quarterback competitions. They rarely stay truly open for long. Coaches talk about equal opportunity. They use all the right language. But inside the building, players can feel when the wind changes direction. Reps shift, energy shifts, attention shifts, and by the time the official announcement comes, most people in the room already knew what was coming. For Gabriel, watching the spotlight swing so aggressively toward Sanders and then seeing Garrett publicly appear to confirm the direction must have made for a deeply uncomfortable stretch. Every throw gets analyzed differently when you know the narrative is moving away from you. Every mistake feels like it carries extra weight. And the hardest part? Teammates aren't even doing it intentionally. Chemistry builds naturally. Enthusiasm gravitates toward whoever the room believes in most. And before long, the gap between the two quarterbacks stops being about performance alone and starts being about belief. And then there's the most surprising wrinkle of all. The one almost nobody saw coming. Because buried inside all of this Shedeur Sanders conversation is a fascinating subplot involving Deshaun Watson himself. According to the rumors swirling around the Browns, Garrett may not be looking to simply push Watson out the door entirely. Instead, some believe the thinking is actually far more nuanced and, in a strange way, more interesting. Rather than viewing Watson as the man who was supposed to save the franchise, a role the injuries and controversy made impossible, Garrett may now see him as something genuinely useful in a completely different capacity, an experienced veteran who could help ease the transition toward a younger quarterback. Rather than bearing the impossible burden of being Cleveland's savior himself, think about how dramatic that would be. This is a man who arrived with one of the most talked about contracts in NFL history, the weight of an entire city's hope on his shoulders, and the expectation that he would single-handedly fix everything that had gone wrong in Cleveland for decades. That didn't happen. But the football knowledge, the experience reading defenses, handling pressure, understanding the mental pace of the professional game, that doesn't just disappear. And for a young quarterback trying to survive his first real taste of NFL complexity, having a veteran like Watson in the room, in a supporting role rather than a starring one, could actually make a lot of sense. It's a fascinating idea, and it says a lot about how completely the landscape in Cleveland may already be shifting, quietly, beneath the surface, before anyone officially admits it out loud.